Right, well, welcome everybody to Development Contributions Review Policy Deliberations meeting. Wednesday, the 23rd of July 2025. We have no apologies and we have an agenda before us. I will move that is confirmed as correct, and we have a seconder.
Yep.
Councillor Howard. All those in favour? Vote against. Motion carried. Do we have any conflicts of interest to declare? No conflicts of interest. Okay, well, we'll move to the main item. It's being led by Catherine Overwater. Thank you, Catherine. Take us through your reporting and then we'll go to some questions.
Thank you and good morning, everyone. It's a lovely, chilly Mangawhai morning. All right, so I think Stuart Cross is on the call there as our technical expert if we need him today as well. So just to make you aware of that. And I'm obviously here to answer any questions of the report. So today, obviously, where we would like to get to is to get instructions from the panel to present findings to the full council on the 25th of August and hopefully to adopt the new development contributions policy. I'd just like to highlight the importance of obviously getting a new policy across the line. Obviously, we were tasked with the mission of getting a new policy for adoption ahead of the local body elections, and so here we are on the cusp. And I think it's important that we do this to address the concerns raised by elected members at the commencement of the review process. So what I'm going to do is just highlight. I'm just going to split my presentation this morning into two parts, if that's all right with you, Deputy Mayor Larson, just to, I guess, first focus on the submissions and the key themes that were raised in the submission. Secondly, on the DC charges and the projects list, because I'm sure you'll have lots of questions around that part and the options that relate to that. Just remember, we need to remain focused on the holistic view of the entire review, which was to replace the existing policy with a better, more readable document. Does a better job of capturing the DCs for the district. So just in terms of the first part, and you've obviously got my report there, we've given a bit of a summary of the submissions that were received, and we've grouped them into key themes. I thought that was the most helpful way to just kind of make sense of those. You can individually go through those points in attachment B's table, and we've given you a little bit of a column there if you wanted to sort of make notes about your thoughts on any of those submissions. But generally, I'll talk probably in more detail about the transparent methods and equity issues out of this discussion today, because that relates to the projects list and the DC charges primarily. But you'll see there were some mixed views in the submissions, which was actually great to see. So some really valuable points which staff have considered carefully. The key changes to the policy document, to be honest, it's not a significant shift from what we consulted on. You'll see the track changes in attachment A there to the policy. Yes, there were a few things that got crossed out and new things put in, but overall it's not a substantive change. So in my report, I've kind of covered off, there were a couple of submissions that sort of raised things about community serving developments. And you'll see I've provided some comments around legal compliance with the Te Ture Whenua Māori Act as well, which was an issue that came up for us at the council meeting back in May. So the panel can direct us as staff to put wording in. My recommendation is that we do explore other options for that, and that could be addressed by multiple means. We've given you a few examples of what other councils do in that space, and I think that's a good way to kind of move forward on those matters. So yeah, there were a couple of changes to the policy, as I said, just things a little bit more readable, and hopefully to make a better, more robust policy. So any questions on kind of so far? Otherwise I'll jump into the DC charges and options because that's where I'd like to focus my time this morning, if that's.
Yeah, councillor Howard.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Catherine, very good and plenty of information. What I'm interested in, and I was probably more concerned with the in-person permissions
Yes.
that talked about the issues of transparency and clarity and potential issues for us. So what exactly have we done? So you've got the heading, and I've still highlighted it as an issue under transparency communication. Would you like to talk further about that?
Yep. So, I mean, most of the issues raised through the submissions, certainly from what you and I heard on the day, was that, you know, for our policy to be robust, it is about what we present in the policy and obviously the way that we communicate that information to developers and the public. So a lot of that will be addressed in what I'm about to talk to you about in part 2 as well when it comes to those DC charges, the project list, because I guess the point is that council needs to be you know, truly transparent in what we're presenting. We've provided the model to the panel today as well. There's a couple of options which we'll talk to. We did provide the model to members of the public that asked for it through the process, the consultation process. The model's not the easiest thing to understand if you're just a lay person, but it does include all the information to put us in a very, I'd like to say, a more transparent position than where we were previously with the current DC policy. So
Cool.
We've tried to be as transparent as we can with all the numbers and figures, and we'll talk through some of that in a sec with the DC charges and options that we're presenting to you today. So does that part the question?
Yes, and we will, as you say, we'll go through it further. I just wondered whether, you know, you've changed your schedule of projects, you know, and that's been done, and that may be part of helping to clarify, having that detailed list.
Yep.
And specific list. But it was, to me, it was quite a take back that here were major players, and, you know, we can't get the growth, we can't move forward without some of these developers and the likes.
Yep.
And some will play you along, some are there to be, get the job done and do it as well and efficiently as possible. So I think that there was a real red flag coming that we weren't as transparent. So I think it's pleasing to hear you say that we are perhaps more transparent now.
I believe we are, yep. And certainly as we move through this next, hopefully we can talk about that a little bit more, especially around the equity and fairness issue, because I think that's where a lot of the developers are coming from. They want it to be seen as a fair and equitable policy. So through the chair, if it's all right, I'll proceed and start talking about the details. Stu's on the call if we need him as well to input into some of the project stuff as well. So when we went away following the hearing, obviously, you know, we wanted to make sure that we were bringing to you the most accurate set of numbers. We have and worked really hard to align our DC policy with the Local Waters Done Well 30-year CapEx plan, which you guys no doubt across. Remember that with the DC policy projects, you know, council does have a choice as to whether we include figures for a 10-year period, which is kind of typical and normal. In this case, we have done a 5-year cutoff, which is what we consulted on, and that was just, I suppose, reduce some of the costs down, but at the same time being transparent and make sure that we're collecting, you know, a fair and reasonable amount of DCs there. What has become apparent through this work, and certainly, you know, putting the new projects in, is there was a bit of an issue around the Mangawhai wastewater 5,000 connections project. And so we consulted on up to year 5 which included, I think it was about $5.5 million worth of project cost. But over the 10-year period, it was going to be more like 32.5 million. So at that year 6, there were some big leaps, 10 million amounts, which drove up the DC charge, and ultimately, that is a concern, which is why we've brought the options back to you guys to consider today. So if I can just speak through those options, and I'll talk about the Mangatoroto water supply issue shortly as well. Option 1A is what we're calling scenario 1. Now that's effectively taking out that project entirely, which reduces the DC charge overall, still applies the 5-year cutoff. But in effect, what we're saying there is we don't necessarily support that option, because then we wouldn't be collecting any DC charges at all for that project, because we'd be removing it.
Don't get a road.
No, this is for the Mangawhai.
Oh, okay, yep.
Mangawhai Capacity Upgrades Project. So we've given you the model, and I've given you the tables as well, which are table 3, 3A and 3B and 3C in attachment B there. So you'll have the comparison between the options as I talk through them.
When you're going through this, can we just have them put up on the screen so people watching remotely can follow a bit more easily? Otherwise, it's going to be references to 1 million documents.
Yeah, sure. So Kelly, if you want to bring up page 76 of our agenda, or 77's got the tables on there. And you'll see I've highlighted in there the Mangawhai wastewater project at 40,126, and the total DC charge that we're considering for the Mangawhai wastewater for that one is the 61,332. So you'll see the difference between the current and the proposed scenario 1 at the bottom there in that red, where it's red, because it's showing an increase for all those charges.
So, Catherine,
hopefully that's clear.
pause for a sec while Kelly gets the
Oh, sorry, it's me launching ahead. Sorry, Kelly, I should look backwards.
Just a welcome question distraction from that. I see that Te Kaupuru's, although they've got their own septic system, if you subdivide into Te Kaupuru, you don't have no development contributions or for the connection to the septic.
That's correct.
Is that correct or not?
Yeah. So it's zero. We're proposing zero waste. So they still have a DC charge of 1896. Nothing for wastewater specifically there.
Although they've got their own wastewater system.
Yes, but we haven't identified a project for that area. It comes back to the project list.
So what you're saying is there is capacity in the scheme that is not anticipated that the current growth demand is going to require a project for any expansion.
Yep.
correct.
So they will pay the operating charges through a targeted rate. They won't pay for scheme upgrade or expansion.
And that's ultimately where we're trying to get with all the small villages, so they're like that, is that correct, or?
Do you mean in terms of
like further down the line with Paparoas and all that, we would expect.
So remember that your projects list is what determines these charges. So if you've identified it through your LTP, and that's where the 30-year CapEx project list comes into play as well, then it will feed into this. But if it's just a targeted rate or something other than a growth charge, then it won't appear in here. All right, so that's the one I just highlighted there with the 40,126 for Manga 5 years. So this is the first option, which doesn't include the connections project.
So just walk us through the connections project, please.
Yep. So option 1B. Yep. So if we move forward, Kelly, to page 78, you'll see there that, including the DC charge. So this is up to 5 years. We've included the project, which I think Stu's probably got the numbers there, maybe in the model, which is I think up to 5.5 million. And
I'm not following you, Catherine. It's just,
okay, sorry.
It will be me.
No, that's right. Sorry. Some of those figures come from the model. So I'm just remembering them off the top of my head.
That's all right, but we do have the model.
Yes, you do. Yep. So I'm
So-
to clarify.
Just so that we're systematic about this, the
Yep.
first thing we've spoken about is option 1A, also known as
Right.
scenario 1, is that right?
Yep.
And that is where we don't include a connections project for Mangawhai.
Correct. Yep.
And it's got nothing else to do with any of the other projects in the district, although on that page you have water supply marked up for Mangataroto.
Yeah. Do you want me to just mention that while we're here? Because that's
That is part of scenario 1.
Yep, so what we did discover was that one of the projects for the water supply in Mangataroto had not been included correctly in the model when we consulted. So we needed to put that project in there to obviously account for that. So that is quite a significant change from the document we consulted on. The reason it appears high in your table there, go back to 77 there, sorry, Kelly, yeah, just to come on the right page, is primarily because there's not a large number of connections for Mangataroto. So if Infometrics information's popped out a number of 108 connections, which doesn't really spread the DC charge. It doesn't reduce it as much as it would if there were more properties, and we had a bit of a play with what we could do there, but because the proposed district planning zoning is still proposed, and we don't have any developers like we do with Mangawhai or Dargaville that we can account for existing approved subdivisions, we felt that it was more comfortable and more transparent to stick with the Infometrics 108 lot. So I've highlighted that in the report just under the option 1A there and just talked about the water supply. So that's why that DC charge appears to be quite high, but it's again trying to be transparent about collecting, for Mangataroto there. So each of the scenarios I've included do include that charge, and obviously it is a bit of a shift.
Sure. So let's just clarify what that shift is. If we go to the best place to do that through the track changes amended policy, or you have those figures?
Do you mean the DC charge or the projects?
The DC charge, which is what we've consulted on, is those charges there. So at Mangawhai, under the scenario, the figure is 40,126, and the consulted figure was what?
Current DC charges. I think I didn't include the consulted one because I needed to go back.
So it'll be in the track changes.
It is
Oh, yes, sorry. Yes, you're right. Sorry.
page
The program.
10,
17.
A.
Page 17 of attachment A
Yeah.
is page 25 of the agenda.
That's correct.
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
Okay.
And so we have a Mangawhai wastewater figure was 48,622.
Yep.
In our consultation document.
Oh, yeah, yep.
And so under option 1A, scenario 1, that would move down from 48,622 to 40,126. And then if we go to the Mangataroto water, that was 22,575 in the consultation document, and it's gone significantly up to 1,500. And so could you just run over that one more time for me?
Yep.
What were the correct assumptions about growth?
It was to do with the project hang on, I'll just go to the projects list. So you'll see in the water projects list, so I'm just looking at page 55.
Page 50.
Whilst Catherine does that,
So,
Chair, I'll also just elaborate on the growth assumptions. So the growth assumptions across the 5-year period is assuming 108 additional connections. If, for example, we were to double that assumption to, for example, 220 connections, that would halve this cost back down to circa 20k. But as Catherine's touched on, because the proposed district plan zoning is only proposed, it's not operative yet, we've gone for a more conservative assumption of 110 lots across the 5 years as opposed to a larger growth assumption.
So when you consulted on it being 22,575, what was the growth assumption?
I might have to revert to the model that we had for that one. Stu, are you in the background there? Or just
Yeah,
if
I
you've
am.
got those to hand?
Same.
No, so the growth assumption was the same. That the challenge is that there were some last minute updates that happened on right before consultation that were put into the model in terms of projects, but didn't make it into the consultation document. So it's actually a missing project rather than a difference in growth assumptions for Maungaturoto that have driven the increase in the charge.
And what was the missing project and how much
The
is it worth?
Maungaturoto water treatment plant upgrade of about $2.7 million.
2.7 mil?
Thereabouts, yep. 2.74.
Stu, I'm just trying to find that on the past and future projects
It's in the
list.
future projects list.
Is that?
Or at least it is in the model that I'm looking at the moment, which is attachment E.
So it's in the model, but
Yep,
has it
and
not
so
made
it
it
should have made it into the policy.
got the wastewater treatment upgrade.
W.
Is it project 35?
Water, it's drinking water.
Yeah, 3535.
So I've got 1.1 in there at the
Moment.
moment. Was that meant to be struck out and included to 2 point?
It was meant to be 2.7.
Oh,
That's what's in attachment E here.
What project list are you looking at, Kathy?
Yeah,
page 55
Page 55 of the agenda.
of the agenda, yes, yeah, which is it's section 51.1 of the policy, and
We're looking at project 3535.
yeah, so that should have a strike through and include the new figures, which if I'm correct, Stu, is at 2.7 mil.
2.74.
2.7.
So that is
effectively why the charge is doubled, right? Because it's double the capital cost, pretty much.
Yes.
So, sorry, can you explain why it's doubled?
Well, effectively, the number that was in the consultation would be that 1.34, which was updated because we had the wrong project cost in there when in an early version of the model that didn't make it obviously into the consultation document, but was updated in the model. That would have been, we would have originally had that 1.34 million, and that's been updated to $2.74 million. So because the project cost is roughly doubled, so has effectively so has the charge.
Sorry, just where is this 1.34 million? We've got a 1.1 million.
and 334.
Yeah, I can see a 1.1.
Oh, so plus that top other project, yep.
Yeah.
So that's now struck out and they're combined into one project. We're not doing the water main.
I would suggest that what's happened is that the Maungaturoto Bickerstaff to Judd project has been removed because we've decided we are not doing it. And at the same time, the project cost for the Maungaturoto water treatment plant upgrade has been revised to reflect the latest estimates on that project cost, which bring it up from 1.1 million to 2.74. So effectively two separate things happening at the same time.
So when we consulted and we said we needed to carry out work on a water main or construct a water main from Bickerstaff to Judd, what happened that we now don't need to do it?
That's on the advice of your infrastructure team that has suggested moving that. So
came back to the conversations that we had with Helen and Hayley and Melissa to straighten out the projects list to make sure that we weren't including anything that shouldn't be in there. So, I mean,
should they not be in this meeting? If no one here knows.
potentially.
Well, let's get hold of whoever's in charge of making those decisions. So if we have questions arising about infrastructure, if the officers that are in the room don't know, that we've got the right people to tell us.
Yeah. So I mean, what I can say is we went through a process with the infrastructure team, obviously, to identify these projects and allocate a growth percentage. And I don't know, I guess, why the decision was made to remove the project specifically as though they're not happening when we were told they were happening originally. But between the consultation period and the other period, someone's had a look at this project list and decided no, some of those projects are not happening actually. And shouldn't
That's fine. I did just from a public facing perspective, we've been it's been suggested to us through submissions that our numbers are not correct, and when we get a DC go from 22,000 to 40,000, and there are projects being doubled in price and projects being removed, we need to be able to explain why that has occurred. I can't really accept the doubling of a DC, say it's not significant, and be unable to explain how it's all changed.
Yeah.
So it's kind of quite critical that we do know that information, because if we're going to be asking the question, then you might have less pressure from submitters in Maungaturoto who don't know about this yet, but we'll certainly be watched from a Mangawhai perspective, that's for sure.
Through the chair, I can see that Sue is on the line, but what I suggest if we can possibly adjourn for a couple of minutes so we can get Haley Whittington online as well. And because to Catherine's point, it was Hayley who was working with Catherine and our Helen to try and reconcile the local waters done well CapEx list with the DC policy. For us.
Yep.
All right.
Okay, well, we'll just take a quick adjournment, grab a cup of coffee if you want to, and we will come back and
Ask the questions.
Okay, thank you, everybody. So we've had join us online. We've got Hayley and Mel. Are you there, Hayley?
Yep, we
Right. We're just in the early stages, just working our way through the various options being presented, and we've reached option 1A, scenario 1, and one of the matters that's arisen is the changes in expenditure for the Mangaparoto water supply. And the question is, the Mangaparoto fixed up the Judd water main project at 34220 was deleted. I've had some commentary that maybe it was because it was a service upgrade rather than a growth project, and that might be why it was. We wanted to hear from those who have been involved in reviewing the list. Thank you.
is around why the Judd project was removed.
Yes.
I think that investment in that area can be deferred beyond the period of the development contributions plan. It's not as urgent, or it wasn't properly timed in the original document.
And so
We do anticipate some growth in that area.
Is it a project that's been pushed further out in the long-term plan, or is it just sitting in the lobby waiting to come in at a later date?
It's been pushed out further in the long-term plan.
Okay. And then the other thing we've just been talking about is the water treatment plant upgrade, which went from 1.1 million to 2.7 million. Can you just talk us through that a little bit, please?
Is that sorry?
Is it the Daggerville one you're talking about? Oh, no, that's
on page 55 of the agenda,
Yep.
there is a project called 3535 Mangaroto water treatment plant upgrade.
water treatment. Yeah.
And we are told here today, although it's not showing in the track changes document, that it's an error and that the project's cost has gone from 1.1 million to 2.7 million. Are you aware of that?
We've had great success in the recent upgrades at the Mangaroto water treatment plant. We intended to just replace the sand filters, but we were actually able to stretch the budget to do some improvements to the clarifier, which have been really successful. So I don't anticipate the extent of the investment required in the Mangaroto water treatment plant to be $2.7 million.
Okay, so let's sort this out, please. We've got conflicting opinions amongst staff, it would appear. What is it? Is it 1.1 million or is it 2.7 million, or have I got something wrong here? It will have quite a reasonable bearing on these things we're trying to decide on our deliberations today.
Yeah.
Significant.
Yeah, so I guess I'm not sure whether the 2.7 million has come from.
So that Stuart, could you jump in, please, and tell us where that 2.7 million has come from? That's in the model, is it?
The 2.7 million is in the model. That was, I would have to go right back to the actual conversations that were had on the 23rd of May, which is when, or on the 22nd of May, which is when the update from the 1.1 million to the 2.7 million would have been made. We went through a detailed process with Sue and, excuse me, I can't remember the name of the other person that we were dealing with at the time, but from the infrastructure team, looking at the project list and revising those numbers, that Mangaroto number has come effectively from your council officers in terms of that 2.7 million. That includes 700,000 in the 25 year, 1.6 in 2028, and 400 in 2027.
Could you just give us those figures again, please? Just at
So 700 in the current year, Sorry, when I say the current year, the year that has just completed, the financial year.
You mean 24, 25, yes?
Yes, that's correct. Yep, the year that has just been finished.
25, 26, there is an amount of how much?
No, nothing in the 25-26 year, and then 420 in the 2027 year, and 1.6.
Hang on, slow down, please. Yeah, just dictation speed, please.
Sorry,
so
apologies.
In the 26-27 year, the number is how much?
420,000.
Yes.
And in the 2027-2028 year, the number is 1.62 million.
Yeah, so 2.7. Yeah.
So through the chair, what we think the difference is that the Mangataroto water treatment plant is currently in flight and almost complete. So the spend in this last financial year is not included in this future forecast.
What do you mean the 700,000 isn't included in this?
Well, we're almost complete the Mangataroto water treatment plant, where we've spent just over $1 million there, and connecting with the Doctors Hill line. So I think that's where the discrepancy in the numbers are. So we're not including projects that we've completed in the last financial year. This is forward-looking.
Okay, well, I think let's just put that to one side. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me at the moment, to be honest with you, that we've spent money and no one knows what they did and didn't spend or when it was spent.
Well, we know that the Mangataroto water treatment plant has been upgraded in this last financial year, and that project is almost complete, I guess, in the next week or so. So we're not going to be collecting contributions for a project that we've already completed, right?
So can I just clarify? What Stuart's got in there is what's in the local waters done well. So the 1.5 million or 1.6 million he's referring to is in the local waters done well. So he's taken what Helen and what Mel has put into local waters done well and put it into his model.
So we haven't had this figure of 1.5 or 1.6 until now. So where's that coming from?
You would have had it in the 30-year plan that went out to council about 4 weeks ago as a briefing. It was in the plans there because I can see it in the local waters.
So we're working off an agenda and we're working through the pages of the agenda, and you're throwing in a number that you say was in a paper 4 weeks ago. We don't have all the numbers in our heads from 4 weeks ago, I'm sorry.
No, so, I understand that. I don't know why it was. I think Stuart's explained that it should have been in the numbers in the beginning, and before it went out to consultation, but for some reason it didn't get to Catherine's paper, and that's why it went out wrong in the consultation. So the figure's always been there. It was put in there by Melissa and Helen in Local Waters Done Well. So I think Stuart's got the right figures in his model, and it's just been wrongly transcribed.
So if we look at page 55 of the agenda, which is page 47 of the attachment, I think, are we adding the expenditure already incurred of 1.1 million plus the expenditure to be recovered from DCs of 1.1 million to give ourselves 2.2 million plus another 500,000 from somewhere else to give us 2.7 million? Is that what we're doing?
I think just listening to what I've heard from Mel and Hayley is that I think what we are probably, it sounds like the cost of this project needs to be revised, would be the simple answer, because it sounds like the project has been completed. We now have a dollar amount that we can put in there that is the actual cost for that project, and it sounds like whatever is in the Local Water Done Well CapEx program, which is where the source of our information, those projects that were earmarked to occur in the future may not be happening now, given that the treatment plant projects have happened already. But that might just be something that we need to clarify with Mel and Hayley and the rest of the team there to make sure that we've got that right, because I guess also it will have those impacts on, not only do we need it right in here, but I guess we do need it right in the local water done well program as well. So we just need to make sure that it's reflected in all of those documents equally and with the right amounts.
So what we were just told 5 minutes ago was that we were able to take the budgets of projects that were already completed and put them into the model to calculate how much we were going to charge in DCs in the future. Are we now resiling from that position and it's not correct?
No, we can certainly put in the projects that have occurred in the past in here as well. And half this policy, as you will note, includes projects that occurred in the past in relation to the Mangawhai wastewater in particular. So the fact that that project has been completed, we just need to, it needs to be put into the model at the actual project cost. And if we're not expecting that there is any future investment, which is sort of what I'm hearing here today, although is not consistent with what I've seen in the local water done well CapEx program, then we need to update it so that it reflects the true estimated cost and actual cost incurred to date. And so it sounds like we should have that data.
If we don't have the numbers right today, are we going to have them right before we conclude our deliberations so we can make a decision, or is this decision going to need to be deferred? Michael?
So further, Chair, my view on this matter is that I believe, and Stuart, you tell me if you do not believe this, that the only incorrect figure that we are talking about is this Mangataroto wastewater figure.
Water supply.
Different water supply figure. All other figures, there are no disputes around that. My view is that we still can carry on through this process today, and the team 100% need to straighten this figure out, which can be done prior to the August meeting when this comes back to council for the decision.
Okay, well, thanks for that. We'll see what else we stumble across as we get through the rest of the items. We've only really begun. Just before we go any further, Catherine, we've got 3 workbooks as attachments, D, E and F. Can you explain to us what each of those is?
Yep, so that's the model. So the numbers that we've just been talking about with the projects are all contained in this model. So I mean the model is a little bit confusing to some people because it's just, you know, it's the background workings of the projects and how it puts everything together, and then it gives us the DC charge, which is in there as well. But at least you can see how it's all in there. So any changes we make there will impact the DC charges list that we've got in the policy there. So the reason I've given you 3,
Perfect, Chair. Perhaps Stuart could just explain briefly any difference in the 3 for the panel.
Oh, sure. Yes. Yep.
So yeah, that's what I'm trying to ask is we've got 3 versions of the model. What is D? What is E?
Yep. Sure.
Yeah, I can talk to that in the first instance. So obviously they are all versions of the same. You know, the underlying workings of the model are exactly the same. The differences in the project list, and I think Catherine was to take you through this, and I'll apologise. I'm already talking too fast. So there are 3 scenarios. The first scenario is effectively the version that underlied the original consultation with a few changes, updates to projects that we went through between consultation and this hearing to reflect comments from the public, and to take that opportunity to have another look at the project list and make sure that everyone was comfortable with it.
Sorry, so just Stuart, I just need to go through this systematically. So what is attachment D?
Yep. So that's scenario 1.
Scenario 1.
Yep. So attachment D is scenario 1 that would reconcile with, I believe Catherine might actually be able to answer this better than I, what tables that reconciles with in your agenda.
Yes.
but scenario 1, the key difference here is that scenario 1 includes
Excludes. It removes it removes the Mangawhai
yes, it does.
5,000 connections project.
So attachment D removes the Mangawhai 5,000 connections project from the charges. The reason it is doing that is that we originally applied a 5-year cutoff on advice from officers in terms of the number of the projects that we were including in the model.
You applied a what? Sorry, you applied
It was a
what?
5-year cutoff, so we only include projects that are occurring in the next 5 years.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so,
now,
that is attachment D model, which is scenario 1. It's a 5-year cutoff.
So
you only count projects happening in the next 5 years.
Yes, and with a note that this one, unlike the consultation model, excludes the project for the additional connections in Mangawhai, and the reason it excludes those is, having spoken to infrastructure advisors, including only a portion of that project wouldn't deliver that expenditure that was included within that 5-year period in the consultation model, wouldn't have delivered anything on its own, because you need to spend the whole amount to be able to deliver the outcomes for that project. So their advice was it's either in or it's out. So attachment D excludes it entirely on the basis of being consistent with that advice and retaining that 5-year cutoff period.
Sorry, I can't quite understand what you're saying. The piling?
Sorry, the
word you used?
Could I?
Hang on, Mike. What did you? Can you just repeat yourself? I can't understand what you're saying. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'll try and slow down as well. Noting that I'm online. So the 5-year cutoff was applied originally in the consultation document as well. So we had applied a lookout to the end of the 5-year period and said only projects that are scheduled to occur in the next 5 years will be included in the development contributions calculations.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's point number 1. So that was in the consultation document to begin with. Now, attachment D is a scenario which excludes one specific project, which is the Mangawhai project for described as additional 5,000 connections, I think is the language used. I might have the words back to front here. Capacity upgrade to 5,000 connections.
Yep.
Is it a capacity upgrade to an additional 5,000 connections, or to a
service
total
an additional 5?
Yes.
Total or additional? Because we're hearing two answers to that. Which is it?
Total, 5,000.
Must be total.
Total.
Yeah, we're only going to 5,050, I think it is.
Two 5,000 connections, correct. Yeah, it's total. So that project is excluded in attachment D, and the reason that we have excluded it in attachment D is, even though there is some expenditure in that 5-year window, the advice that we were provided from your infrastructure managers or asset managers since consultation was that including that portion of expenditure in year 5 wouldn't, if from an infrastructure delivery perspective, that expenditure, if council only spent that money, wouldn't achieve any outcomes, because you need to spend the whole amount of the total project cost to be able to deliver the capacity upgrades that are required and to deliver outcomes. So the advice that we had from the infrastructure team was you would either include that project in its entirety, or you include none of that project, on the basis that you want to have some consistency in terms of the delivery of the outcomes. So attachment D excludes that project in its entirety.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Howard, you had a question?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. On that basis, I've long argued that we should be talking, when we talk about Mangawhai wastewater, is disposal is one element, and the other one is plant capacity, quality, water quality, but specifically capacity. So if you took out all of the funds for that project totally, does that mean that you had taken out all of the funds allocated to the new disposal strategy that we need to have going in the next 2 years? I.e., that was the work on the golf course, subsurface strip.
I mean, I could take
Question.
some of that answer,
Probably-
but it's probably not for
probably
me. But the disposal projects are still in the development contributions policy.
Sorry, what was that?
The disposal projects are still
The
in the
disposal
development.
It is
projects
still,
are still
well, I just couldn't see it specifically.
It's definitely in there.
Okay,
Um,
Well, let's come back to that and find it. What I just want to do, you've explained to us what attachment D is, and what is attachment E? What is that showing that's different?
So attachment E is effectively the original consultation model with the amendments that have been made at post consultation, having taken that opportunity to take on board community feedback and talk to your asset management and infrastructure team, primarily to remove a few of those projects. So, for example, removing that Judd to Pickerstaff main project is no longer in attachment E, but that capacity upgrade, there is expenditure in there in year 2029, which is the amount that I referred to before, that on its own does not achieve infrastructure outcomes, but what including it does do is mean that we are collecting some money towards that project now.
Okay, and then attachment.
This is, yeah, and then so attachment F includes, if I am correct, and I just want to double check that before I tell you, so I'm just jumping into the model myself right this second, includes the full projected cost of that project right out to 2034. So adds in a significant amount of additional cost. We had the 5 million effectively in 2029 in the previous model, in effectively the consultation version. We're adding another $31 million worth of capital cost for that project in the DC model in attachment F, which goes out beyond that 5-year period.
Does that take it to a total of 5,000 connections then?
That is my understanding.
Yes, it would.
So what is the current number of connections?
Sue had something on that in her little sheet.
With the index
Oh,
system.
2,700 is the current connections we have online about that. But the disposal is only about 3,000 and the treatment plant is 3,500.
Capacity at the moment. So you're saying, what was the 2,700? Is that
Total connection.
total connections?
Actuals.
That's actual total connections?
Yep.
And so
That's
our actual total disposal is the same number. And then you're saying that the capacity for disposal at the moment is
3,000.
3,000, and our capacity for processing is
3,500.
3,500.
Because we increased it by 500 when we put the indent system in 2024.
Yeah, okay. And so we have in this attachment F modelling, we've got an additional 2,300 connections anticipated. Yeah. So there's actual 2,700 at the moment.
2,700. I think that was reported during the week. 2,710.
Actual now. Yep.
Yeah.
Thinking up to 5.
Going up to 5,000.
Going up
5,000 minus 2,700.
2,300.
Correct.
Yep.
I said something different.
No, you didn't.
Okay. Got me confused. Okay, so the 2,300, what properties are they made up from? Our anticipated growth over that period in attachment F.
Which
So
specific properties?
Well, the 2,300 in additional lots that we're going to collect DCs to connect to the period of time in attachment F. How was that calculated? Where are we going to see that growth?
The growth assumptions.
So that's through a step process. I mean, obviously, when you have to, you can't just build a plant for the growth statistics. You have to go up in steps, and that's what we've done. We've said we're going to get to 5,000 by 2050, but what we know is that we've had so many plan changes that have actuated in the last couple of years. So we have 730 sections from Mangawhai Central. We've got another 340 coming on from the Rise, 100 from Hills.
Sorry, slow down, please.
Yeah.
Please slow down. I can't take it in at that speed. 730 from Mangawhai Central.
Yep, we've got 340 from the Rise. We've got 100 from the Hills.
Yep. Yes.
160 from MetLife Care.
Yeah.
And even as in the latest exceptions report, you will see there's another 98 in two big subdivisions, one in Black Swamp Road, and not the one that's going for a plan change, but one that's going for resource consent. And there's another one that's quite large. They total about 100 as well. So that takes you up to 1,430 known big subdivisions.
In Black Swamp, there's a 98 and a 100, is there?
No, it's 100 in total for Black Swamp, and I can't remember the name of the other road, but there's two. And that doesn't include the plan change that is going through at the moment for Black Swamp.
Is that Raymond Bull Road? Yeah.
Yeah.
So they add to what, sorry, without me doing it myself?
1,430.
So there's 1,430 from known approved plan changes or a resource consent application that's being processed. Yep. And so that's 1,430, and we've got an anticipated figure of 2,300. So where does the balance come from? Is there latent growth in infill and what have you, is there, or?
Through the chair, I think I heard Sue saying the estimated connections of 5,000 would be by 2050. So that 5 years.
Yeah.
So I anticipate that latent infill would be across that 25-year period.
And so have we just come up with the number of 5,000 by extrapolating from the 1,430 plus the existing 2,700, or is there some maths behind it? There's 870, another 870 lots in our assumptions there. Where does that come from?
I'd have to defer to infrastructure and planning, because that's not, I just know the figures.
Okay, well, let's hear from infrastructure and planning. And where does your additional 870 lots come from?
What I can tell you is that Infometrics, when they've done their growth, they have said just by natural growth, mum and dad subdividing sections, other developers coming online, that's what they've shown in our growth statistics.
And so if we go into the model at attachment F, we could just talk our way through the various spreadsheets that are in there. understand what the model's doing?
We can, yeah. I'll try and do that.
Everyone wants to get attachment F up on your screens, and we'll put it up on the main screen as well, so you can follow it.
Okay. And I think probably the simple answer is I'll tell you which sheets we can ignore as well.
Yeah, okay. So if we can just hi-ho for a moment, we'll get the model up on the main screen, and then you can walk us through each of these spreadsheets, which it looks like start that new model.
Yep. Yeah.
Give Kelly a chance, or whoever's going to project their screen.
Yep. So we're on the new model sheet now. So what I'll first say is that the charges that we have used are based on Infometrics growth projections in terms of the projected population increase and consequential dwelling increase in each of these areas. So
Sorry,
that capacity,
I'm just going to have to slow you down again. So we're looking at a workbook, and on that workbook there are a number of tabs, and you've got one down the bottom above your pointer there. Now we can see it. So we are currently in the tab called New Model. What is the New Model tab? Is it a list of project expenditure across a 10-year period or a 30-year period?
So the New Model tab is the most important tab. This is where all the calculations are really happening. So you'll see down column A there, we have a list of all the projects. They're actually being fetched from another sheet in here, but I'll go through that sheet when we get to it. But that is all the project details, and you'll see there we've just identified what type of project it is in terms of whether it's based on projected expenditure or actual expenditure. We then have details around the year it was completed, which actually is not relevant terribly for the calculations in this model, but is
sorry, which column is saying actual or anticipated expenditure?
That's that column B, which has the heading type.
B.
Sorry, yep, B for Bumblebee.
It says BC code on mine.
Well, it should have the heading just like this.
Yeah. Go back.
I don't know why it would have a different heading in what you're looking at. That's
says type.
Attachment F, DC code.
The columns B, C, and D hidden, or E hidden.
Hidden some columns or something.
I'm looking at the sheet. Oh, you're looking at a PDF.
PDF, yeah.
There is sheets on the screen, so it should be A, B, C, D, E, F.
Sorry, I'm talking to what I'm seeing on the screen here. Yep.
I've got that.
Yeah, I'm talking to what I'm seeing on the shared screen.
Which is an Excel spreadsheet, yes.
Kelly, could you zoom it in so the chair could?
So am I looking at a different tab? Are you in? I'm in a different tab. I've got it now. Yep, gotcha.
Right. Okay. Cool. We're all on the same page now.
We are.
So the type is just identifying whether it's projected or actual expenditure. Then we go to column C, D, and E. Column C is not terribly relevant for the actual model and the mechanics of the model, but it's identifying when the project is expected to or has been completed. The next column, column D, is year one for modelling. So that is the first year that it is included in the development contributions model, i.e. in terms of the first year that we are including costs into the model, and the first year that we are the first year that we are collecting development contributions for it. Column E, and we won't be able to go through all these columns, by the way, because the spreadsheet is very, very wide. So once I get past some of these columns, I'll explain what a group of columns is doing instead. Column E is the DC version the project was added into. That's really important for us for tracking it. So it's the version of the development contributions policy that project was first included in. You'll see most of these projects were originally included in the 2024 policy or the 2018 policy. There's only a handful of projects here that have been included in the 2025 policy in the first instance.
Yeah.
The DC code, you probably don't need to worry about too much. That is a lookup that I've got in there so that we can fetch data for the rest of the model. So it's literally just a unique reference so that we can pull some data later on.
Yep.
Similarly, the DC category is important, I guess, in terms of that is the category for that project. So you can see it's got the catchment name and then the activity behind it. Again, being fetched from an independent list. That's just to hold that data in this model. Similarly, the project ID in column H is another unique identifier lookup that we're using to be able to fetch data from elsewhere in the model. So not to get too concerned over that. Probably some of the more important stuff for you to look at here, I guess. So column I is the total project cost. That is the full cost of the project before any subsidies are taken into account. But we cannot collect the full cost of that project through DCs. We have to take into account subsidies. So you'll see in column J and then consequently column K, we are subtracting the subsidies to get to a net project cost. And probably, for example, the roading projects are the ones that you'll see that the most prominently in because they're the ones where we have the biggest subsidies.
So just with that, with our financial assistance rate being 62%.
Yep.
Why are some of them? What's that?
No, I just agreed. Sorry. Why are some 61?
So yours is 61, and then there's one project there that's at 62. So is our financial assistance rate 61 or 62?
The 61 has come from the previous version of the model, from your 2024 model, in terms of that's the subsidy rate that was applied at that point in time in 2000. Remember, this is a project from 2018. It is quite possible that your financial assistance rate has changed over that time period. But that is the subsidy rate that was applied to those projects in the first time that they were included in the development contributions policy.
So past expenditure.
Past expenditure.
Okay. So any new expenditure any new expenditure, for example, row 17 at 62% is a new project, is it?
That will be a new project, yes. I mean, it's a project that has been completed. You'll see that is flagged as an actual project, but it's I guess new enough to have that existing 62% R rate applied.
Okay, thank you.
Quite a lot of 61s.
All right, carry on. Thank you.
Then we have another column here, which we've called the growth attributable cost. That is by and large the same number, but what we are doing there, particularly for new projects, because this is a new piece of methodology that has been adopted in this policy and not in the previous ones, is that where there is an identified renewals component for the project, so we are replacing an existing asset, we have reduced the net project cost by what we are expecting a fair share of the renewals component there would be, so that the growth community is not paying for the renewal component of the project that might also include a capacity upgrade.
Okay.
The next columns here are the estimated project cost that relates to increasing the capacity for that project, and then we also have a series of questions from columns N through column S, which again represent part of the new methodology, which are effectively largely yes/no questions or multiple choice questions that will be reflected in the policy in terms of the flow chart and how we derive a growth percentage. So that is capturing that data so that we can then run the formula. Effectively, that flow chart is actually driving a formula behind it to identify what that growth percentage is. So that growth percentage being captured in column T. For most of these projects, that growth percentage, as you'll see, isn't driven off that flow chart because, again, we have adopted the same growth percentage that was applied to those projects in the original DC policy that those projects were included in.
Yeah.
We have not revisited or relitigated whether that growth percentage is correct or not for those projects. And we have taken it that there was an appropriate process that was followed, And that process was followed for a good reason, and therefore that cost is appropriate. Sorry, questions?
I was just going to say, through the chair, Councillor Howard earlier on asked about transparency and openness. What you can see here is, we are being as transparent as possible here. This is the model, warts and all, trying to show yourselves as a panel and the community exactly where the costs have come from, exactly what the assumptions are, to put us in the position that we are in now. So transparency, here it is.
This is probably where it starts getting a little bit more technical, but I'll try and go through it as much as I can. So column U is that growth attributable cost that we talked about earlier, which is the net of the renewals component, multiplied by that growth percentage. That is the amount that we are intending to collect from development contributions from the model for each of those projects.
So just with regard to that, Stuart, when we go back to column L, which is our growth attributable cost, we also have M, which is the percentage project cost relating to additional capacity at 20%. And then we have at column T, our growth percentage, and our DC funding is a multiplication of our growth attributable cost by our growth percentage.
Yeah,
where does the sorry, go ahead.
So that estimated cost percentage of project cost relating to additional capacity becomes relevant when we go through some of those yes/no questions. So if I went through the whole flow chart, effectively where it's important is if the project has a mixture of level of service investment to existing communities as well as to the growth community, and that is effectively that 20% then becomes part of the formula to derive that 25% I'm talking about growth 13 at the moment because that's the obvious one.
Yes.
It becomes part of the formula to derive that growth percentage. So it's used as part of the inputs for those yes/no questions, but it's not driving a calculation directly itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and so in this example, that row 13, which is Dugable Bailey's water supply, it isn't a factor, and you've simply gone gross attributable cost and multiplied it by the 25% growth factor. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, so that 20, but to get to that 25% in that particular circumstance, I believe it would have taken into account that 20%.
I see. Yeah, but it's not. Oh, yeah, it is. No, it is in the formula there. Okay.
Yeah, so, it's not as explicitly. It's not as explicitly in the calculations as just multiplying a number by 20%.
No, I can see that. It's quite a complicated formulaic calculation. Yep.
Yeah,
and the easiest way to see that is probably to look through those flowcharts that are in the policy that actually take you through how those calculations work, and you'll see that the 20% gets captured in there, and then it's just reflected in the formula.
Councillor Howard,
just using that one. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Using that one, line 13. So what we're saying there is that 1,079,000 are going to be funded by DCs. So the balance is going to be funded by general rates.
Correct.
Okay.
You just went to what cell you're talking about.
Line 13, that one that you raised.
Yeah.
You go right across to column U. It says your DC funding.
Yes.
It's going to cover you for 1,079,000.
Correct.
Yep. So just extrapolating that, the understanding there that the balance is general rates.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. And then as we work across, we've got the rest of the calcs on how we're getting to our DC here.
Yep, right. So columns V, W, and X are effectively trying to determine how much capacity or how many houses we can divide that charge by. So we've got two different ways of doing this. One is if we know the exact amount of capacity that is being created, we could use that number.
Yeah.
For the most part, a number of these projects, we don't know the exact amount of capacity, but we do know that we are building it to effectively sustain capacity throughout its infrastructure life. So best practice guidance there would suggest that you should not set that capacity life as at any period longer than 30 years. But when obviously these are assets that are long life assets, so they may last a lot longer than that, but we wouldn't set the capacity life any longer than that. That 30 years is effectively the collection period for the development contribution. So we're collecting, wherever there's a 30 in column X, we are collecting development contributions over 30 years of anticipated growth.
Yep.
Column Y is the number of expected new housing unit equivalents that will arise between the period in which we are first collecting development contributions for this project through to the end of that capacity life period. So again, for a project that was put in today, it's from today until the end of 30 years from now, so 2055.
Yes.
That is based on population projections and therefore inferred housing numbers from Infometrics population projections. Column Z is using those same population projections to identify the existing number of units that will be in that model, and the existing number is useful for, again, when we go back, if I was going back to that growth percentage, that is used as part of the denominator of some of the equations for the growth percentage. Again, if you followed that flow chart, you would probably see where that comes in.
Yes.
Column AA is effectively the same as column Y, and in fact, I couldn't tell you why I put two columns in there, but that they're effectively the same number. That is, again, the modelled number of additional units that we are collecting these development contributions over. And then column AB is the number that are remaining. So particularly relevant for some past projects where we may have already collected some development contributions. These are the number of housing units that we're expecting are still to come online in relation to that project. What's probably most important for you, though, so if we just skip a couple and go to column AE.
Yeah.
This is the development contribution per expected housing unit. So that is effectively just that development contribution amount, that growth share that we talked about before, the 1 million in the context of row 13, but whatever other number we want to talk about, depending on what project we're looking at. And that excludes interest. So that is literally just that number divided by the number of houses we're expecting to collect the development contribution over. The rest of this model starts to get pretty complicated as we move across, but you'll see there's a couple of points here in terms of we have interest rate reductions for some projects. Predominantly, these are most of them are 50%, and they relate to the Mangawhai wastewater plants, where you have made decisions in the past to subsidise some of the interest costs on the Mangawhai wastewater projects by 50% from your general rate. So that is preserved in here, and we can change that pretty easily. To get to the actual development contribution charge, which is the DC per HUI in column AF, I'm going to try and just give you an overview of how we do that through the model without going all the way across. But effectively what we're doing is running a separate loan account for every single one of these projects. So what we're doing is saying we have capital costs for the project that are going out. They are money that we are borrowing. And then we have development contributions that we are receiving that may occur ahead of that capital expenditure being incurred, or that may occur afterwards. And we create a rolling loan balance, right? So the development contributions coming in mean that we've got a credit in our account, and we've got a positive balance in that loan balance, and when the capital comes out, we end up with a negative balance that we've got to repay over time. The model in the columns that go very far to the right-hand side effectively is trying to work out the timing of when those payments come in based on, again, the population projections when we're expecting houses to come in and come out.
Okay.
And it basically says by the end of the 30-year period or whatever other length of time period that we have set, that loan balance needs to be zero. And so it says in order for that to be zero, based on when we know the charges are coming in, what does the development contribution charge have to be to make that balance zero at the end of the collection period?
What I'll get you to do, Stuart, is just pause and give us a 5-minute break. I need to use the facilities myself. We'll just use that quick break and grab a drink or whatever you want, everybody. A lot to take in there.
I think he's also.
Okay, thank you. Welcome back, everybody. Thanks, Stuart. If you could just complete what you were running through, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll just wait for that spreadsheet to be pulled up. Right, I can see that. I'm assuming everyone else in the room can now as well.
Yep.
Cool. Okay. I think I got through most of this sheet. We were back across. Sorry, I was literally looking at the screen that was shared with me here. We were back across at yeah, around here. Look, I think we could go into the details of these other columns to the right, but they are effectively the workings behind some of those calculations. So the numbers that have been pulled across, this is the growth attributable cost that's been pulled across per year for each project that you can see on the right there from columns AM through AX. But most of this is probably not terribly important at this level, unless you would like me to really talk through what's in each of these groups.
That's a good overview of that model. Thank you, Stuart.
So,
just very quickly, in terms of the other tabs, so we're aware of what they are they feeding into the model? Yeah, okay.
So I'll run you through those quickly as well. So the DC charge schedule tab, that is the output of the model summarized in that table format that you would have seen in the policy.
Yes.
And there's a number of kind of automatic calculations that are going in to try and pull that together, which is why we've got some lines here with zero charge in them. It's just so that we're making sure we're capturing it all. The Huey's tab is some reconciliations for some of the other tables that were in the policy there in terms of how we've derived some of those tables. They're not really part of this model at all, so probably can be ignored for the purposes of this discussion.
Yeah.
DC's received. That is a record of the development contributions that have been received in the past and will be a running record of them going forward. Of course, relevant for when we do policy updates in the future, because if we're not achieving the growth that we're expecting, or that growth occurs faster than we're expecting, then when we're looking at the future charges, we may need to recalculate those charges based on the development contributions that have been received. So that's a record of development contributions that have been received. You'll see there's a number of X's there because I've asked for additional information to be recorded going forward that hasn't been recorded in the past or hasn't been readily available to me from work from the past. Some of this is going back quite far. So we just put placeholders there, but we've got the summarized information in there. The project list worksheet, which is the next tab along, is the list of all the projects with a little bit more detail about each of those projects. This is the source data for the projects that gets fetched into that new model worksheet that we talked about before. It holds predominantly the timing of all those projects in terms of when the investment is going to happen is the main bit of information that's captured in here. I can talk you through this sheet if you would like as well. This is probably one of the only other sheets that is terribly important, but like I say, most of the information captured in here is the timing of those projects.
Okay, thanks, Stuart. Just Michael Day.
Yeah, through the chair, I see that Councillor Paniora has her hand up.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor, as you're not part of the panel, you do have an opportunity to provide to ask questions at this stage.
Oh, okay.
Unless the chair deems appropriate.
What are you doing?
I'm saying.
Well, the difficulty, if you say unless the chair deems appropriate, then I have to let the entire council come in and have their chance at asking questions.
But
there are others as well.
My recommendation would be to not allow her.
Okay, but I think if there are any elected members that are online watching and have matters arising, then if they could deal with that through an email to the officers, and we'll get answers that way. Otherwise, the trouble is if we start going non-panel members can jump in and ask questions, then I have to extend that right to every elected member, and then it becomes not a panel, but a committee of the whole.
Mhm.
If you're okay with that, thank you. All right. So thank you, Stuart.
Right. Sorry. If you have no objections, we'll just move on to the next worksheet. Just in terms of, I've described what that one does. This one is the past project schedule. Columns B and C are effectively just helper columns for me. I normally would have those hidden, but they are literally just so that I can automatically populate this schedule without having to manually go through and identify every single project that is past or future and put the numbers in.
Yes.
This again is an output from the model.
Okay.
So this is an output that is schedule 1, I believe, in the policy.
Correct.
Yeah.
And if we move across for the worksheets further, there are some more worksheets there. The future project schedule, same thing. That's schedule 2 in the policy.
Yeah.
It's another output. The area lookup sheet you probably don't need to look at too much, but I'll just show you that when I talked about the lookup codes and the DC codes, this is where what I'm using here to fetch that data. So it's literally just a list of places in codes. So there's nothing to see here, I guess.
Yes.
The growth projections sheet is the detailed growth projections at a sum level based on the Infometrics data for each of those districts, and you'll see they're broken down stormwater waste, each of those area codes that we just saw before. Project schedule helper is as the name would suggest, is a helper sheet that is literally to help me be able to automatically populate. Again, to be able to automatically populate some of those tables for you. So again, it's not a working sheet in terms of the model. It's a working sheet in terms of trying to populate tables and produce outputs more efficiently.
Yeah.
So again, that sheet can be largely ignored by the panel, I would imagine, unless you want to get into a
that's fine.
level of
That's
detail.
good. Yeah. So if we just take a couple of very quick examples just to get us through this. In terms of those assumptions, the one that we were talking about was the Mangawhai wastewater assumptions. Where are those growth assumptions projected in the growth projection sheet? Yeah. So column and row, where are we?
Yeah. So growth projections, Mangawhai wastewater row 19.
Yeah.
Is the projected number of existing housing unit equivalents in Mangawhai in 2024 in row M, and then you can see the projections moving out throughout right through to 2054.
So they're a running total.
That's a running total, yeah.
And it's a running total over a 25 or 30-year period?
Over a 30-year period.
You're using 30. Yeah. Okay. So we go out to 2055 to give us
so we actually get only to 4.5. Well, we only get to 4,500 based on Infometrics population projections in 30 years.
4,500 in 30 years, and we're going. Are we going 5,000 in 30 years, or 5,000 in 25?
We're recovering over that 4,500 in terms of the development contributions. The project is scoped to be able to handle 5,000 connections. It wouldn't be best practice to try and collect DCs over a longer period than 30 years. That is typically not considered to be best practice.
No, so the anticipated growth is over 30 years, though?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, all I'm trying to do is sense check the growth assumption, and I don't say that I don't think it's necessarily fanciful if you take your 870 that we haven't got accounted for outside of plan changes and anticipated resource consents. It's only 29 per annum on average over that 30-year period in terms of other
What line were you looking at? Line 19, is it?
19.
Yep.
Yeah, that was line 19. All I'm saying is that the things we had before was 1430. And there so there's a shortfall of 870 or
Yeah.
And 870 divided by 30 is 29. That seems reasonable.
Yeah.
The test.
As we've gone to the conservative side, as I see it, and I think that I imagine that the other element is that even though the treatment plant is modular, the way that it's built, there are certain size elements to the likes of the tanks and things like that, so that they have, I guess, a model that they go to that gives you the 5,000, but that's a base for the future.
And so if you go total projected growth to 5,000 in 30 years, which is 2,300 divided by 30, you've got 77 per annum, including and change areas and resources. So okay. Yep.
So what I would add about those growth projections, obviously, is as you've probably deduced, they are very critical because they are the denominator in the equation. So we increase that number, we lower our charges, but we increase that number. If we lower our charges and we don't achieve that higher number, then obviously we don't collect enough development contributions, and we can go the other way, and we potentially collect too much if that number is too low. So it needs to be based on a number that council is comfortable it is likely to actually occur in Mangawhai. And of course, we have opportunities to review the policy every year if we wish, but every 3 years on an LTP cycle to revise those growth assumptions as we get more and more information around what growth is occurring.
So just one final example, just to help us here, then let's go to the the Mangataroto water supply figures that we talked about earlier, and just show us how that changed so much.
Yeah, so there's not a lot of growth occurred in here, right? So we start here in 2024 with 464 estimated QEs.
But hang on, just take us to the row. Mangataroto water supply is row 12.
That's 12, correct?
12, yeah.
So that row has been highlighted on my screen. And so you see we start with about 464 HUEs in 2024. And by 2054, that number has not grown significantly. It gets to, what have we got, 579. So really not high levels of growth in that area, which is what's driving that higher charge. Now, obviously worth noting that project cost, it sounds like based on our earlier discussions, will probably come back down a little bit, but we'll work through that. So, but yeah, certainly Mangataroto with the growth assumptions, I guess one of these key things that I think of when I think of development contributions is if we're coming out with an unacceptably high charge for a project, then we probably need to look at whether it is actually economically viable for that project to happen if that project is there to support growth.
Yeah, except if we do end up with that rezoning coming operative, then we're going to be recalculating at a significantly different assumption.
So, one other question for you on that. Going through by the I haven't looked at it specifically, but the effects of the extensions of the 4-laner through Northland. Now there'll be time. Mangataroto is an example. There's no overt sort of leap. It's all in 1s and 2s per annum there. And the same would be for Mangawhai. It might be that that's the next growth leap that we have if we get back to what we experienced some time ago of between 70 and 100 new connections a year. So it's going to be critical to keep an eye on that and those key issues that come along that can really influence a growth spurt. So And that's where you get to, I guess that's where you've started off with a conservative basis, and I think that that's fair across the district, but you've got the opportunity to upgrade it and quickly move on things as you see things happening.
Yeah, so through the chair every 3 years or annually if you want to.
Yep.
Yep.
All right. Okay.
If it doesn't, if you don't mind, the other comment I just wanted to make, because it comes out of this model, but it was in relation to one of the submissions I saw there, was the interest charges being quite significant. And I'm sure you guys all understand this, but you know, these are projects that are taking 30 years to be fully recovered. If you took out a mortgage on your home over 30 years, you'd be paying at 5% interest, you'd be paying roughly double the amount of the mortgage over that 30-year period. So it's not unreasonable to expect that the interest component would be a significant component of those DC charges.
Yep.
I want to try and move things forward, but just while we're in the model, it might be useful to go to what is shown on page 25 of the agenda, and you have eroding DCs there, which has gone. We've gone from a 16,289 for Roding East to 17,239. So the first question is, can you show us in the model how you've calculated that amount? The second question on that page is that the Roding East, all urban and rural, is paying a district-wide in addition to the 17,342, but in the district there is only a catchment amount of 342 and no district-wide amount. So the first part is how are you calculating the 17k, and the second part of the wide is the district-wide only applying to the eastern area that's already paying 17k.
I'll answer the first, the second question first, actually. So the intention here, and maybe it's just the way that it's been presented in this table, is that the whole district is paying that 342, not just the Roding East catchment. So that second line, it should be read that the description district, all urban and rural, is the catchment for the purposes of that line of the DC policy.
So is it in the wrong column?
It could certainly be moved across. I think you could make an argument either way as to which column that should be in.
District-wide, yes. Go ahead.
They don't have a catchment specific charge, only a district-wide charge. It's an apples to oranges.
So for the purposes of that, the catchment for it in that cell with the 342 in it, the catchment referred to there is the district.
Entire district.
Well, it might be. It's a bit of a confusing way of presenting it.
Yeah, that's accepted. So that number can be moved across to the other column.
Okay, so can you take us through your growth assumptions on Roding East and how you've gone, why we've gone from 16,289 to 17,239, and what the assumptions are, so maybe show us in the model.
So that increase, I probably don't even need to show you specifically in the model, but I can. The Roding East charge, remember, is made up of a number of different projects. So can I share my screen? I'm not sure if I can. Do I have permission? It might be easier for me to do that, if you don't mind. What am I doing? Okay, share. Excuse me while I just try and oh, okay, it does not want to share that very much. I'm going to share my entire screen. I apologize. So you might see yourselves there for a second while I switch to the appropriate sheet. So if I go to attachment F, can everyone see my screen at the moment?
Yeah, and you're in the model, so in new model tab.
Yep. correct. Right. So, for a start, I guess, Roading East, if I can filter these cells, so I'm just going to filter down to the Roading East projects. You'll see there are a number of Roading East projects here. Some of them are forward-looking in terms of access to the Alamere boat ramp, which we don't actually have significant funding for. The Cove Road connection to Mangawhai, all of these projects here that I'm hoping that, have I zoomed this in far enough for you guys to be able to see it? Sorry.
We can search it on our screen anyway, just in the DC category, just select Roading East Roading. Yep.
Right. Sorry, just trying to make sure that you are able to see what I'm pointing to here. So that charge is made up of all of these projects.
Yeah.
Predominantly, most of these projects having a FAR rate applied to them, but there are some projects here that are unsubsidised.
Yeah.
And in particular, we have the Wood Street improvements, which is probably the project that is actually the most important one for you to understand in terms of that difference in the charge. But like the Cove Road connection to Mangawhai Central also been an unsubsidised project in this model, at least, and being my understanding. And we have those unsubsidised seal extensions as well for Mangawhai that are included in this model. The growth assumptions there, noting that some of these projects started at different times, so we have different numbers of additional HUEs based on when they were first added to the model and what the growth projections were at the time that we expected them to happen. So some of these projects been added as far back as, this is actually as recent as the 2024 policy, but some of them been added in earlier versions of the policy, mean that we're picking up growth projections from the point in time in which we designed that infrastructure.
So can you just take? Sorry. Can you just talk to, if you go to your project list there in column A, and if you go to, for example, a big hitter there, like you've got the Kaiwaka Honorary Road section upgrade in 2024 at
not a lot of cost.
So
287K.
Yeah, so what's happening with that? Because last time I tried to have that conversation with NZTA, didn't want to know about it.
And hence we've got no subsidy for that project as well.
Yeah, okay. So what are we doing there? Somebody?
Well,
not Stuart, will we?
I think Kurt was the one that fed into here, so I'd have to go back to Kurt.
My understanding is that project is still on the project list and is still planned, but I mean that's why I've got it in the model.
Yeah, well, I mean, we kind of need to be able to ask what a project is and have someone in council in the room know what it is. There must be a general manager that knows what our infrastructure projects are.
Our roading team has told us that these are the projects which they are still.
Except that we as the elected council don't know that they exist. So what are they?
It is worth noting that project in particular was added in the last development contributions policy as well. You'll see there that it was added in the DC policy from 2024. So it's a project that has been on your, has been in your development contributions policy for some time and has been collected on for some time.
Yeah, and then we've got the Mangawhai shared path at 12 million with 62% subsidy.
Yeah.
So have we not already done everything that we've got scope for that?
Yeah, so this is all actual costs.
Right.
But we still want to collect development contributions for that project, correct?
It's correct. Some of it was funded from development contributions.
Yeah.
Just a small portion. Some of it was from financial reserve contributions, but most of it was from subsidy.
And that needs to continue until the development, I guess that project is repaid through development contributions.
So how far?
So the big,
I thought we'd already paid for it. I didn't realise we were paying for it for the next 30 years.
yeah, so that's modelled out to 2050.
Yeah.
In terms of development contributions, which is how most of these projects are effectively working, is that they're being repaid over that long period in terms of the future growth that is occurring.
So the shared path that we thought was done and dusted is actually being paid for the next 25 years by local development at 17 grand, part of the $17,000 per lot.
Correct, about 2,800 of that.
So each person that does a lot here is paying 2,800 towards the shared path. Yes.
Correct.
Okay. And so what about the Cove Road connection to Mangawhai Central? How is that materialising?
Largely in the same way. So an unsubsidised project, the project is, from what I can gather, complete. We have DC funding of, we're collecting 88% of the total cost of that project from Growth Community. And that will again be repaid by 2050. And again, the 88% from your previous development contributions model, where that was determined to be the appropriate growth percentage to be collecting on that project.
So someone enlighten me, is this project complete and how is it connected?
No, my understanding it's going to be done in 2029, I think it is.
Sorry, I have it here as projected. I assumed it was complete because I had a very specific number here, but that's
so there's a growth attributable cost of 7.4 million to connect the road to Mangawhai Central, and via what physical location is it connecting? Connecting via Cove Road through Garbalino Road to West Street to Molesworth Drive, or quite what?
Sorry, I can't give you that. I don't know the where it's that'll be infrastructure that understands better those figures. But that was the latest figure I was given.
Tell us, who's the infrastructure person in the room?
We've lost Hayley and now.
May I add a question to that? Is that where in Mangawhai Central does it connect?
That's what I'm asking.
From Mangawhai Central.
Well, from the only existing connection we have is to go from Cove Road to Garbalino to Moore Street to Molesworth Drive and up through the roundabout. It's already constructed.
Well, yeah.
Who's telling us about it?
I don't know if we've got anyone to tell you about it.
I believe that we spoke to, is it Kurt, but he's
Kurt Martin's the one that's
external.
The only other one I can think of.
I don't care whether he's external or not. If there's someone in charge of it, if there's no general manager here that knows how this is being done, then we need whoever's in charge of it.
Nick knows.
Nick Bennett is the infrastructure general manager.
Yep.
Exactly. I don't know where his whereabouts are today.
He's across the road. Kelly, could you get Nick across?
He can dial in because he's probably our best bet.
Good question.
On that subject,
Go ahead.
I believe there'd be submissions in for the district plan in relation to Stegerton Road over in Dargle being, as all of Pope is connected Mount Wesley Corner, which is subject to inundation underneath it, and I believe that there's submissions on Stegerton Road opened up. So we've got it on both sides, I think. But just as a sideline thing as we're waiting for somebody to arrive.
While we wait for someone to arrive, I will just talk about the Wood Street project, which is actually what's driven that change in cost. So originally we had that Wood Street project in at a lower value in terms of how much was collected from development contributions. We had taken that from a capital works schedule that was provided to me that it turned out only included the amount that was expected to come from development contributions rather than the full cost of that project. So that full cost of the project has been reflected in here, and therefore the amount that we're expecting to collect from Wood Street is the number that has increased between those two different versions of the Roading East charge that you're looking at.
So the total project cost is 6 million.
Yeah.
And the total project is being funded from
28%.
DCs, is it?
Partially from development contributions, 28% of it effectively from development contributions or thereabouts. Well, 28% because that's what's in the model. Of that cost is coming from development contributions, while the remainder, again, would be coming from targeted or general rates in the area in which
growth component is 28%.
Yeah. So previously we had the 1.68 million. It was effectively the project cost that we'd included in the model rather than this full $6 million cost. So there was a misunderstanding in terms of what the numbers that were provided to me represented in terms of whether they represented the full cost or the development contribution share that had been determined by council.
Right. Well, I think we'll have to put the Cove Road connection thing on the list to be addressed whilst someone shows up that knows the answer.
Good chair. Next,
Who's not driving? We'll just wait for him then.
So worth also noting that where we have been able to, we have preserved projects that were included in the previous development contributions policy, because removing those projects between policies opens you up to having to return those development contributions back to developers if they were collected for a reason that we no longer, if they were collected for a project that is no longer happening or where there is no alternative project that is serving the same process included in the development contributions model. So I guess the point there is remove if it's genuinely not going to happen, but proceed at caution there.
Okay, yeah, so you've just got stuff deferred. Yep.
Yeah, deferral of projects is fine.
Okay. Okay, I can explain what we were asking. Thanks for coming over. We're just looking at the the projects that make up the Roading East development contribution, which is 17,239, and one of the significant projects is on Road 15, which is Cove Road connection to Mangawhai Central. And the question was, that project at 7.4 million, what physical route does that project take on the ground?
Not 100% sure.
Who does know?
It will be, it's Sue, but I believe it's on Waipu Road.
No, but how does it get into Mangawhai Central?
Can't answer that question, I'm afraid.
Who can?
I've been trying to get in touch with Kurt, but he's not available by us.
Yeah, we'll park it.
Okay, it'd be good to know.
That's good. Okay. All right. I want to try and move us on. I know we've gone to a great level of detail so far, but I think that's covered us in terms of understanding for a lot of other issues there as well. So you want to raise something now, Mike?
No, let me just have a look at this. I'm just looking at one element and I'll check some other stuff out. I'll come back to it.
Okay, so we have basically gone so far through option 1A, looked at the changes that result from Mangawhai wastewater and Mangataroto water supply, understood that. And so the next scenario, Catherine, is what?
So we've covered off options 1A and 1B. So the next scenario was, sorry, it's to my page. Option 2, which is scenario 2. So we've talked a little bit about this was the 10-year period. So this was including the full project across the 10-year period as opposed to the 5-year cutoff as we've done in the 2 previous options. And so again, just to give you the comparison, that's where we've got tables 5 and 5A, which you can find on page, just find my own numbers, 81 of the agenda.
Page 81 of the agenda, yep.
Yep, so you'll see there that that wastewater charge jumped significantly, including the full cost of the project there, to 66,000 with a total of 88,067. So that's obviously hugely significant, which is why we needed to come back to you. Because initially our thinking was to be as transparent as possible to include all the DC charges for that period of that project up to 10 years. But because of the fact that we'd already consulted on a 5-year cutoff, and because those charges increase after the 5-year period, we felt that it was good to come back to you with these options, which is why it's so complicated and why we've got new option 1B is our recommended option. So yeah, hopefully that just gives you context. Now you've looked at the model, hopefully it's a little bit clearer why we've done that.
So can you just explain to me what option 2?
Yep.
Don't want to do it.
Because it's adding significant cost over and above what we had already consulted on, and we had not included the full cost of the project in there. But of course, yes, Michael?
Mangawhai
wastewater only.
specifically.
Yep, so it doesn't impact any of the other projects that we've talked about. It's just for that connections project. If we were being a fully transparent council with including the full cost of that project, we'd put it in. It's your decision as the panel to say, well, maybe that's quite a significant jump from what we did consult on. It is okay to choose to take it to the 5-year cutoff, which is why we've given you the other options. But you could also say, well, let's collect the full cost of the project for the 10 years. And this would be the new DC charge, obviously, for collection in the new policy.
So the flip side of that is if we don't collect it on day 0, in 5 years' time, the new connections, when it jumps up significantly, are going to pay even more each because there's a lot less.
Yeah, so transparency is this issue.
Well, I'm not worried about this. I'm not worried about the transparency. I'm worried about the fairness over the 30-year period. If we say we won't, I mean, I'm not sure that is the right rationale to use to say that our numbers were wrong when we went to consult, therefore we'll truncate it at the 5-year mark so that it isn't too big a jump. Isn't it? We need to make sure our numbers are right, and if we have to reconsult, then maybe we have to reconsult.
So through the chair, the numbers were right.
They were right.
It's just that we took the 5-year cutoff at the point when we consulted. So all the projects were cut off at 5 years. And this is when we went back and we just had another look across the 10 years, as you can see in the model.
So there's the.
Councillor Howard, I'm just going to explain a bit more. So the DC policy was put out for consultation prior to the local waters done well 30-year CapEx plan being finalised as well. And so that 30-year CapEx plan is out now. And what you see in there is for example, year 7, something like 10 million investment required for Mangawhai. Year 8, 10 million as well. And so there's a huge jump up in the quantum of what's anticipated to be needed in Mangawhai to service the wastewater growth in years 7, 8 and 9, right? But we consulted on a 5-year period, which is what Catherine's trying to articulate here.
So the problem with option 2 is
probably more fair, the fairness equity issue and the risk of challenge, I suppose, because council does have an opportunity, obviously, to revisit the policy in the years to come and to put more cost in later. But yeah, that's primarily, I think, certainly from me putting these options together, I think it's important that we put the option on the table for you to consider, because it is an option to charge for that 10-year period. But remember, for the other projects, we've only used a 5-year cutoff, so it would be an exception to what we have done and what we have consulted on. So it's just to try and ensure that if we're going to make a decision, it's about, do we collect the entire funding for the project over the 10-year period versus 5 years?
okay. So let's just have a look at option 3 then for completeness then.
Yep, so option 3 is basically an alternative option for you to consider doing something completely different to my options above. So it's not uncommon for councils to do things, for instance, capping some of the project costs, which is what WD's done, or potentially adjusting interest charged on projects, for example. So if you weren't, for example, happy with some of the projects and their costs, you could look at those options. So it's just another way of giving the panel the option to consider an alternative if you weren't comfortable with the other options.
Okay. So just to move things forward, Michael, I just think it's good for us, now that we've kind of understood the process, to find a couple of examples. If we go to the DC charges on page 25 of the agenda, which is kind of where the rubber hits the road, and work through, and we've got Roading East as the first one that's been changed, and that's up in the air pending information. It's going to come back to us through Nick. We have covered the District 1 and suggested that it would be moving to the district-wide column. And then when we move to stormwater, the next big change we see at Bailey's Beach. Can we just work our way through why there was such a significant change from the consultation document through to
so that was the
now from storm?
Removal of projects for that one. So several projects for Bailey's, including, I think it was Cynthia Place and, sorry, I have to get up to the projects list, were taken out, which is why it's reduced.
If we go to the projects list on page what?
So we're past projects is 51 and future 55. So you'll see I've struck out. So Cynthia Place was one of the water projects. I think I'm not missing anything from the past projects.
So we're in stormwater. Yes, stormwater.
Yep.
Already incurred 266.
Yep. And jump.
266 to 66. And the expenditure to be recovered over 199. So what's the sort of project was partly completed, or it was totally completed and didn't need as much money as was anticipated, or?
If I'm right in thinking with that one, Stu, when we considered Cynthia Place with Mel and Haley, I don't know if they're on the call, that got merged with something else, did it not? Or there was some reason that they didn't need to go ahead with because we'd already accounted for some of that somewhere else. Or I could be wrong.
So is it another infrastructure question and there's no one in the room from?
There it is. Yeah.
So I guess they're coming back into the meeting. We'll leave that one then, we'll move to the next thing. So we've got stormwater and Dargaville, that also took a fairly major haircut.
Yeah, and again, that project.
Yeah.
Which SW stormwater growth.
So that had
Take a lot out.
project taken out, stormwater growth with Dargaville got taken out.
Yep.
And what was the rationale behind that? Is that something for infrastructure to tell us too?
Yeah, look, I think that I'd feel more comfortable if they answered that.
Okay. Is there anything else we can achieve without them? Kai Walker's had a minor change. It's something project been rescoped or something, is it?
Yeah, the costs have been updated for that project, just upon further advice and discussion with infrastructure teams.
Some of it was updated cost from the local waters done well spreadsheet as well. So some of the numbers changed.
We're at 12 o'clock. I just wonder whether we should take a lunch break and give the infrastructure team a chance to find out why these numbers changed. Come back. Are you, as a panel, happy to do that? It's midday.
Tied up at 1. 1.
Right.
How long would you like to break to?
Well, I thought we can have a 20-minute lunch break, but Mike's got some commitment at 1 o'clock. Well, I don't know. I don't know how far we're going to get before 1 anyway, to be honest with you.
We can is attempting to get infrastructure managers back online. I do suggest short lunch break would be.
Okay, sure. All right, we'll take a short lunch break and we'll see where that gets us to then.
Muted. Okay, and Chair Haley is with us as well. We'll explore those line by lines.
Okay, so we're just going through page 25 of the agenda and just checking where there are changes, how those changes from the consultation document to where we are now in terms of the new proposed VC charges. So during the break, where have we got to? We have an answer on the Cove Road connection, or did you want to go through to other items?
I think we've got Hayley on the line.
So, yep, through the chair, I don't have any visibility on any of the roading projects, sorry.
Okay, well,
We're still trying to get hold of the ratings.
that's all right, okay. So what we're going to do, given that there's quite a bit of information outstanding and we have other people committed to meetings, is we are going to continue here as best as we can until 12:50, unless we aren't able to get the information. We might stop earlier. And 12:50, we are going to adjourn this meeting and we will reconvene at a suitable time, which we'll arrange, and we'll take it from there. So if we go to page 25, then Hayley, we've got a number of track changes there. We've had a conversation about roading east, which we're waiting on some further information on. In terms of the other changes that we've got there, we were just wanting to run them changed. At Bailey's Beach, there is a place. We're trying to figure out what had actually changed.
So look, I can only answer on a high level, okay, because Mel is in transit. She's actually on her way to meet the Mangawhai Cemetery, and so she can give the details. So if there's if I'm not answering your question, I guess to be able to enable you to make decisions, it'd be good if you could email me through the specific questions after this after this meeting as well.
We're not going to do that. We're going to ask now.
Okay.
The things that have been changed in the schedule of the they changed and why they changed.
So Bailey's Beach, I understand that has been amended to reflect the Bailey's catchment management plan, which has been completed. So that's refocused our assumptions. And I understand.
Sorry, Hayley, you need to speak at about half that speed.
Okay. So my understanding for Bailey's Beach stormwater is that number was reviewed to reflect the Bailey's catchment management plan, and so that's refocused our assumptions there. And I understand.
Hang on. Sorry. Once again, can you please slow down? We want to see in a model what's changed, where did it change, and why did it change? Not just that assumptions were changed about a catchment plan.
Yep. So the Bailey's Beach catchment plan changed because we moved away from the Chasers Gorge capital project, and we focused on fixing the bottom of the creek there as you go into the beach, and that's where the roading team are working at the moment. So I know that that's impacted that number, but to what level, I can't answer that. I can only answer that high level space.
Okay, well, can we go to that in the model then, Stuart, where are we looking?
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, so those projects would have been removed. So to show you in the model, you won't see a project there if I pull that up in the spreadsheet, because the project has been deleted out of the model. Most of those Bailey's Beach projects.
Page 55 of the agenda has got the Bailey's Beach Cynthia Place stormwater upgrades. We've already spent 266,000 on something. We had 66 that we were going to recover, and we had 199 further to be recovered. So what were we doing?
So I
is we
can
were
show
putting-
you what is left in the model. I can't show you what was removed from the model with the attachments that you have in front of you because they are not in the model at the moment. So I can pull open Bayless Beach. We're talking stormwater, are we not?
Yeah.
And if I go to, sorry, I'm just navigating that in my model, and then I can pull that open.
So
for
if we
you.
go to Bailey's Beach stormwater,
You can see
Yeah.
what projects are remaining in there. So I can share that, but they are both historic projects. That the only projects that remain for Bayless Beach stormwater relate to Chaser's Gorge work that happened some time ago.
okay, so we did some work and
Yeah.
it's all been completed and we've decided we don't need to do any more work and everything's good.
That's my
And therefore we're
understanding.
Yep, I think that's my understanding as well.
The chair,
You go ahead.
there was actual physical work, not any reports or flood reports or anything like that?
Was it physical work?
So obviously there's the preliminary investigation work that can be capitalised and led into the physical work and the project underneath it. So those two are related projects in terms of the initial investigation work and then followed up by the actual physical work to respond to that.
Thank you.
Is my understanding.
Okay, so when you filter by Bailey's Beach stormwater and you get rows 63 and 64, are they they are still projects here?
They are projects that have been completed.
They're completed projects.
Correct.
Okay, so those project costs there of 307,000 for Chaser's Gorge and 23,000 for Chaser's Gorge investigation are just old projects that have been completed.
Correct.
And they were funded through stormwater DC at 38 and 37% growth factor.
Partially funded through those projects, yes, correct.
What lines are you on?
So that's lines 63 and 64. So the DC funding was 112,000 and 8,000. So we've got a
Over a very small number of new houses.
Yeah, so that growth,
Yeah, it had to be.
2019, 20, 21 and 23 were our...
Now, admittedly, there is a very high interest component on that one, which I think I'm just going to try and understand why there is such a... I think the reason there is a really high interest component on that is predominantly driven by the very low growth that's occurring. But that interest component is significant, so that may
we go out to rows, columns H I onwards, where you've got your revenue assumptions mapped out over a 30-year period or whatever it is.
So that's...
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say that's mapped out on the basis of, trying to repay effectively $100,000 off all of, 100 houses, which is where you get some pretty significant charges, obviously. But like I say, looking at that, I suspect that I'm a little bit concerned that the interest component on that is a lot higher than it should be, and I'm not quite sure why that is looking that high at this stage, and that would have to be something that I'd investigate offline to be able to figure out if that looks like it's correct. But I can't understand why it would not be.
The interest component being column, which column is it?
So if you look at and let me just confirm which column it is, but if you look at the difference between columns AE and columns AF, we have some really significant interest components relating to both of those projects. Very significant.
Yeah, okay, it's coming in from IO 64. So
And it's reflective of the fact that we have very, very low growth in those areas. So in fact, I said 100 houses. The latest growth projections we've got for those areas, we've only got 11 houses projected to turn up in that area over the remaining years. So this is the challenge. So yeah, and in fact, when I say that's the interest component, now looking at that model, that's the difference between the change in the growth projection. So it's not entirely, all of that number is not entirely interest. A lot of that number is the reduction in growth rather than interest.
All right. I'm happy to move on from that.
Well, I just one additional query to that. With us remaining with $12,476 under the catchment for that, page 25, down from the 21,008, it would suggest, and if you're talking about 11 properties or whatever, there's still 150 odd thousand, 130 odd thousand still to go that's been allocated.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen that. Anything like that figure there.
The 130.
There it is, 112, 177,
you're
and
referring to
8,911.
The 130 that you're referring to, we've got about 120 between the two in terms of the DC funding and column U, and then the remaining component actually being the interest. So this is where that growth projection for that area obviously coming down significantly compared to what was originally projected. So those two columns that we've got there are probably a little bit, we refer to it as DC per Huey excluding interest and including interest. The DC per Huey in column AE excluding interest is based on the original growth projections. The DC per Huey including interest is actually DC per Huey including interest and latest growth projections. Effectively, so that's why there's a big change between those two numbers as well. It's not actually all interest, it's predominantly a significant reduction in the growth projections for those areas.
Okay, but if I may, just one further question. Why do we, on page 55, under 50, schedule assets 2, not have a line item for that 120 odd thousand dollars work that's still to be done?
Sorry, so this schedule here is the future projects. And those projects are past projects, so they should be in schedule
on page
1. So those would be listed on page
51 and 52.
52 at the top is Chase's Village, the two projects there.
Oh, they're there. 2.
Yeah.
Right, sorry, I was reading the current and future.
Yeah, just projects.
Okay, thank you.
Next is Kaiwaka, so you've just re-scoped some work on stormwater there and brought that down a little bit.
Yeah, so that was just a revision to the cost estimates.
And then at Mangawhai, your stormwater has gone up significantly, it's threefold. Take us through those numbers. Go to stormwater, Mangawhai stormwater, I guess.
So which page is let's go back to the page that has the changes on it with Mangawhai stormwater, sorry?
Page 25 of the agenda. So if you go to the model and take Mangawhai stormwater projects, you've got half a dozen projects here.
Yes, I think that's probably taking into account private plan changes and increased growth, but I am not sure about the exact detail into Mangawhai.
It's a major addition on growth projects on page 55.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we know what those growth projects are?
You'll note that there's also a removal of projects of a similar scale earlier on. So I'm pretty sure that is a reclassification to ensure that there were no duplicate projects in here.
Oh, I see. So Lincoln and Cheviot Street came out, and Mangawhai Heads road redirection and flow and culvert upgrade was zero, right?
But you've got Jack Boyd Drive resilience come down 900,000.
Yeah.
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 Okay, so we had ups and downs, but the resultant DC still went up threefold from 767 in the consultation document to 2,070 in this recommendation.
Yeah, I'll have to confirm with the asset management team for the detail of the projects under.
Okay, well, let's bring that back as well because we've got 8 minutes left. So let's just have an explanation of why that went up threefold. And then we move to Dargaville wastewater. So that came down for 3 or 4 grand. What was?
So Dargaville, Mel told me on the phone before that Dargaville was the biggest change because she didn't agree with any of the assumptions in the previous DC policy, and so she's started completely afresh based on the projects that we have planned through Local Waters Done Well. So she's aligned Dargaville completely with the Local Waters Done Well assumptions.
Right, so the assumptions that we consulted on were saying were wrong.
Yes, correct. This is now aligned with the Local Waters Done Well plan.
And were those assumptions to do with projected growth?
Yep. So she believed that the forecast for growth were well beyond what we were actually seeing on the ground and seeing in, private plan changes or through our economic scans.
Okay. Well, when we come back, when we reconvene, if we can have it explained to us, please, about what the previous assumptions were, what the new assumptions are, and why we're for that position.
Yep.
So then we have a minor adjustment at Kaiwaka. What was that about? Is that growth projections or is it changes in costing of projects?
So the Kaiwaka changes is the staging of projects, so moving it down to a 5-year plan, a 5-year projected view is what Mel said.
Okay, so you've made it a 5-year projected view and that's pushed it up.
Kaiwaka's come down, hasn't it, from 5 to 5.2?
Kaiwaka wastewater treatment.
Oh, right, sorry.
On page 25.
Yeah, wastewater, I'll have to double check, but I imagine that if it's wastewater or water supply, it's because they've been matched with the Local Waters Done Well modelling. So we've tried to marry the two up.
Okay, so there's a change in modelling, so we'd like to hear what's changed in the modelling to change the number.
Yep.
And then the next big one we've got there is the Mangaroto wastewater going from 12,600 in our consultation down to 223.
Yep, I'll have to get an explanation on that one.
Okay.
Well, there's three projects taken out.
That's right.
And is that because they went out past the 5 years?
Couldn't tell from this.
It's a little bit like Mangawhai though, isn't it? If you are going to limit it to 5 years, then you're pushing the cost of those projects on to future generations, which might make their cost significantly higher.
The Maungā ones are the removal of the Bickerstaff to Judd projects. I think there were 2 Bickerstaff to Judd projects that were quite significant in scale.
Yep.
On advice that those projects are either not happening or that they will be happening much later than we'd originally anticipated.
Yeah, well out towards the end of the next long-term plan.
Right. Okay. And then we had a Mangawhai wastewater. We've kind of been through that in pretty great detail. Are you guys happy to move past that for now?
If I may, Mr. Chair, just one query on that. If I look at the totals, I'm looking at wastewater subtotal, page 57, and you've 39,100 expenditure already incurred to 59,780. But I can't see where the figures align with 59,780. Page 57.
They come from the model. I'm just checking the model. Hang on a second.
And the same applies for the other figures.
I've taken those numbers straight out of the model, which was the scenario. So the 1B in here. So those figures are at the bottom in the model in the future project schedule tab.
Well,
Future model, future project schedule.
I would have thought that, you would have figures in there, projects that would total up the 59,780, as you say.
Yes.
But they're not there.
So we're talking about the wastewater column on attachment F, the working model scenario 2.
I was looking at scenario 2, Hayley, but I'm just thinking that the numbers that went into this one were the recommended ones, which should have picked up the 1B. Sorry, this was a last minute change out because Stu ran the model for us. So I'm thinking it probably should align with subtotals at the bottom and here, which is quite different. So we might just need to check that.
If we could, please.
So through the chair, the team will revisit that. Obviously, as the chair said, we'll adjourn in a few minutes. We'll look at that and come back. We reconvene on that matter. Well spotted, Councillor Howard.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, so just for completeness and before we wrap up for the day, we have got the Dargaville Baines Beach water supply more than doubling. Been through the Mangataroto water supply, I think, have we? I'm starting to, yeah. The only other thing we haven't really looked at, which is still sitting there the same, but I think it's probably something we should look at, is this district, all urban and rural community DC of 1554, which appears to relate to the project on page 58, which is the community hub, $6 million total cost. And if we track back through those three columns, which there's no hidden on these pages, they are expenditure already incurred is the first column. So according to this, we've already spent 6 million. And then we've got expenditure to be recovered from DCs of 3 million and expenditure to be recovered from other is another 3 million, a total of
I think that
12 million.
that heading needs to be revised to say expenditure expected to be incurred.
Okay. So yeah,
But it is
at the moment it's expenditure already incurred. We're told that's not
yeah,
correct.
it's planned.
Not correct.
It's planned expenditure.
So we have a $12 million project. When we come back, let's look at your growth assumptions and how those numbers stack up for us. That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
12
Anyone
million.
else? Does anyone else have anything else to add before we wrap up? We'll wrap up on the panel here. No? Okay. Thank you. Michael, I'll hand over to you to take us forward.
Okay, thanks. Robust session today. Clearly, we haven't got approvals and serious for the direction of the panel. We will reconvene. The staff team will go away and get busy following up on the pertinent questions the panel have asked. So when we reconvene, the staff team will be in a position to answer the panel's questions. We'll go from there.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your attendance, everybody. Thank you, everyone online.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you.